Commissioner, this is a fantastic day out here. A typical day, really. There's bus loads of kids out here. Beautiful outdoor classroom at one of the most ecological, very important places in the valley.
Absolutely, it's a huge conservation issue. The county invested millions, as well as the federal government. Most of it was actually funded through the SNPLMA, or the land sales that were done back about 10, 12, 20 years ago probably. But this has been now open and it's well used. Unfortunately, we still have issues with vagrants and graffiti and shooting and just a mess. So we've actually been convening with Metro, with school police, Parks and Rec, BLM, Bureau of Reclamation to try to figure out how we can get a handle on this. They've torn down most of the fencing out along the trails. They're setting those on fire, so we're trying to find out how we can handle that part of it. We've had shootings. I want it safe for people that are bicycling or hiking. There's no shooting allowed out here, and people are out there just driving up illegally up the washes and just letting gunfire go, not realizing, I think, that there are people out there using the trails as we want and putting them at risk. So we've been meeting with Metro for about 6 months now, trying to lay out some agendas, and they've been wonderful. We've actually asked the county for additional park police to designate them here, and I believe that they're going to comply with that or that request. So we're trying to do some other things as well to make sure that we had more community policing out here.
What else can be done, Commissioner? I mean, it is 2,900 acres, and I know a lot of what you've been talking about is on the one end. There's basically only one access way in off of Hollywood on the far side, right?
Yeah, the Sunrise Trailhead is where a bunch of it happens, but it's all up and down there. There's behind the Las Vegas High School, there's a group that meets called Little Mexico, so that's their party time, but they've had shootings there. We've had students we had a young man die. Another one was out here just last week I read about that flipped his truck and got caught with guns, got caught with, one person is still in critical condition. Part of it has to do is I want to ask the parents, there are curfews, and you need to make sure you know where your young man, woman, child, whatever are at, number one. Number two, anybody that wants to use this, we need to share it in a very conservation way. We shouldn't be driving up, big trucks up and down the washes. It degrades the land. It affects the animals that are out there and the plant life. So part of what we're trying to do is ask the community to protect this jewel. You spent millions and millions of tax dollars that went to this. We should respect it and make sure we respect each other.
And obviously the ecological part of it, controls our water that flows into Lake Mead, provides purifies it.
It purifies the water. We have, I don't even know how many weirs. I know that there's 3 to 5 weirs that we still have to construct, that we have to work with Bureau of Rec on. But in the long run, this is a jewel. It is the wetlands. It's where all your water comes to. We filter, clean it through the Water Reclamation Department, which is just down the street, and then repurpose it. And so, we shouldn't trash things the way that people have been doing. It's unfortunate.
Commissioner, a little bit further up the wash area is Desert Rose Golf Course. All of us golfers are getting quite excited that is going to open, I believe, hopefully sometime in March. Can you just bring us up to date on that
Sure, they're
project?
just about done. We were waiting for FEMA to finally approve the maps so I can get my folks out of the floodplain. They don't have to pay that insurance anymore. They've submitted everything. I got an email that they're about a week out, and then once they do that, we'll begin the notification process. That's part one. Part two, though, we had a stakeholders group, the neighbors, the golfers. They renamed it. They wanted to go back to something that was more historical and traditional. So they've come up with the club at Sunrise, and then we have the Winterwood Grill, which will be there. That'll be available not only for eating, but also for leasing out. So if people want to do weddings or graduation parties, it's a beautiful setting. I think they'll be very happy. So we're looking at the opening now around the first week of April is where we're at.
And again, you mentioned the flood control component talk a little bit about that, how vital that is to the overall flood project.
It was huge. This was the most expensive flood project ever done in the history of the state. It was over $101 million, and that's part of it is not just the flood channel at the golf course and rebuilding it, but it was also all the sewer lines that had to go between the county and the city were being redone at the same time. So unfortunately, we had a gentleman that died during that last round of flooding. So the flood, FEMA puts them into a flood zone. When you do the project, then once you have redone it and they accept it, then they can take the people back out of the flood zone and they don't have to maintain the flood insurance, which saves them hundreds of dollars. So that's what we're still waiting on from FEMA. We did everything on our part in a very timely manner. We've been waiting since December, I believe, to hear one way or another. So FEMA, I just saw an email a week ago, and they're within a week or so of making the finalization on that. Then they'll notify the neighbors once they take it out of the floodplain. There may be some additional ways to get them credit for their insurance, because some folks have already paid for the year, so that's part of what we're waiting for.
And then on the recreation part of things, us golfers are,
Yes.
I played there many times, and it was, in mixed conditions, but now it looks beautiful. It's going to be a magnificent course.
I'm so excited about it. It is an asset to the community. I made a commitment when I first ran for office that we would not convert that, we would keep it green. And the golf course, they wanted it natural through the wash. We only did a concrete at the bottom of it, so it's easier for them to clean. The main thing is we're trying to make sure that we don't have the trash that comes down the flood when we have a flood patrol. There used to be times when I would be out there and there'd be grocery carts and mattresses and everything else. So I just ask people, stop the illegal dumping, be respectful, because that does impact it. But the golfers are going to love it. I don't golf, but I've had golfers on my committee working with the developers all the way through this, so their input's been very well taken. We've re-sited where some of the courses were so that the houses have less impact with the balls in the long run. So we tried to really learn from it. The mobile home park that's along there, we rebuilt their fencing and did it so that we could protect from the raccoons being able to get up and under and get into their mobile home park. So we've tried to do everything we possibly could based on what the constituents have said that they wanted out there while that project was going on.
Commissioner, Maryland Parkway is a large part of District E and something I know you've been working on for a long, long time. And there's several different components now. There's a Southern Nevada Strong, which has helped on strategy on Maryland Parkway. You've also had a number of stakeholder meetings and public meetings at Winchester and other places. Bring us up to date on what's going on on Maryland Parkway.
Maryland Parkway is another jewel, in my opinion. I mean, I've always lived off of Maryland Parkway, so that's kind of my neighborhood. But when we're really looking at revitalizing it, and without a redevelopment area, the county doesn't have one. How do you redo that? Part of it came just from private sector because Mr. Sansone and his business company bought the Boulevard Mall. They've been revitalizing that. It looks marvelous. They've done a fantastic job. They're about 80 to 90, I think 90% rented, maybe even more so by this time. The Nevada Hispanic Museum is located in there. We just opened John's Incredible Pizza. Goodwill is there. It is just changed the whole face along that corridor. That said, you have the airport, you have then the university area, you have the retail, then as you move further down you have Sunrise and the behavioral hospitals, so that's kind of a medical component, and then it naturally leads into the city of Las Vegas, down almost to the Bonneville station. I have been promoting since I got here that we should really do light rail. We're in the middle of EIS. We have to secure the money. It's very expensive. But RTC is working very closely with our business group that we formed almost 4 years ago now to really give us good guidance. So as they work through grants for that, how do we at least get rapid bus transit down there until we can actually get light rail to interconnect the airport all the way to downtown North Las Vegas? I think it's absolutely key. It's pivotal in and of itself because it revitalizes, but it'll be a different way to show people that we can move resources, people around. We want them safe. We want bike lanes. We want the buses. We want the transit component to come in, because that adds to the beauty of it. You can get to the hospital, you can get to the airport, you can get to the university, you can get to retail. So all of that is part of what we're looking at. We even got a National Endowment for the Arts grant that was written by Nevada Strong, Southern Nevada Strong. So they got $50,000 grant. We had a neighborhood meeting to really identify the planning part of that, because we want to incorporate public art throughout as well. And in the long run, we just had a meeting last week. Art Prize may select us and that would be a wonderful corridor to do that. So that's another exciting venue. We had over 100 people that showed up for that meeting, so that was pretty good.
And what other cities? I know we've studied some Tempe's and Portland, Salt Lake cities. You're looking at other models to not reinvent the wheel, but to cherry pick some of their terrific ideas.
Exactly, and there's a trip. I think Commissioner Brown's going to Denver this week. I was not able to go, but I was there for convention back in 2008 and quite familiar with it. I rode public transit everywhere. Boise, they went to Salt Lake City. So we've been looking at where do we glean ideas So as you said, not to reinvent the wheel. I want to beautify Maryland Parkway, for example, but there's other areas as well that we're working on. If you'll notice, the orange cones, be patient, because that means that that's people working. That means that we're actually putting those dollars, those fuel tax dollars, back into infrastructure. So we have over 132 projects out right now through RTC. There will be a November ballot question, and hopefully the public will support that, because that continues the program. That means we get more resurfacing, more rebuilding. We just had Eastern's being done, McLeod's being done right now. Hollywood is slated to be redesigned. We're going to, we just let a RFP to look at a roundabout up on Hollywood. I know some of the constituents may not care for that, but you have to really look at traffic calming devices. We built our roads, some of our roads, way too wide. It's a drag racing. The kids are speeding up and down. So we'll do a temporary one to model it, to see what happens with the school buses, what happens with traffic, before we make the final decision on that. But I do think it's the right way to go.